Welcome to the Healing Energy Collective, a space for mindfulness, embodiment, and healing. I'm Scarlett Chang, and I'm so grateful you're here. Today, we're exploring one of the most powerful, yet often overlooked skills in building healthy relationships: listening and validation. Because so often, the secret to healthy communication isn't about saying the perfect thing. It's about being able to hold space so the other person feels seen, heard, and understood. So often in our daily lives, we give and give to our jobs, our responsibilities, and the people who rely on us. Our relationships then become our safe place to land. But when we come to our partner or a loved one with an emotion and it's dismissed, minimized, or quickly fixed, it leaves us feeling unseen. What we're really longing for in those moments is something simple and human: to feel seen, heard, and understood. For someone to say, "I see you, I hear you," that makes sense. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Have you ever shared a frustration with your partner and instead of listening, they jumped into problem solving mode? Maybe you said, "Work was so frustrating today. I didn't feel appreciated for my work." And instead of saying, "Wow, that sounds upsetting. I can see why you'd feel that way," your partner launches into, "Well, you shouldn't feel sad about that. Everything's fine." Suddenly, you feel like your emotions are being bypassed. The truth is, emotions aren't problems to be fixed, they're experiences to be witnessed. Think about emotions like an inflatable beach ball. If you push it underwater, it won't stay hidden. It will eventually burst back up, often with more force. That's what happens when emotions are invalidated. When someone says, "You shouldn't feel that way," or "That's not a big deal," it doesn't make the feeling go away. It just pushes it down and eventually it explodes back out, sometimes in anger, sometimes in shutdown, sometimes in disconnection. Validation, on the other hand, feels like a deep exhale. When someone says, "I see you're upset," of course, that makes sense. There's a softening in the body, a sense of safety. What's interesting is that emotions themselves don't actually last very long. Scientists say about 90 seconds. If you truly let yourself feel them, they'll pass. It's the stories we attach to them, the judgments, the resistance, and the shame that make them linger longer. Validation helps soften that charge. When we validate someone else's emotions or our own, we allow the feeling to move through. Here are some examples of validation, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It can sound like, "I see you're upset. Of course you feel that way. That makes sense." That's it. You don't need a 3-step solution or a lecture. You just need presence. Now, I want to be clear: problem solving has its place. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help or offer solutions, but it's most effective when it comes after validation. First, emotions want to be witnessed. Then, once your partner feels seen and safe, they're more open to hearing solutions, brainstorming together, or even receiving advice. It's not that our partners are bad or have bad intentions when they skip validation and jump into fix it mode. This is often a learned skill. Many of us grew up in families where invalidation was normal. Maybe emotions were ignored, minimized, or even criticized. Over time, we come to believe this is just the way relationships work. But as adults, we can learn a different way. And learning to validate both ourselves and others changes the dynamic completely. Because here's the truth: most of the time, people aren't fighting to be right, they're fighting to be heard. When someone feels dismissed, they often either bottle their emotions until they explode, or they try to prove why their feelings are valid, which creates even more conflict. But when we practice validation, conflict softens, the body feels safe, and connection deepens. Even if you don't fully understand why something matters to your partner, like maybe they're upset about social media and you personally don't care about it, that doesn't make their experience any less valid. You don't have to get it in order to honor it. Every single one of us has our own lived experiences, our own perspectives, and our own inner world that deserves to be respected, not debated. Imagine telling your partner something about social media that hurt your feelings. If they don't care about social media, they might say, "That's silly, you shouldn't be upset. It's just online stuff." But that doesn't make your experience any less valid. What they could say instead is, "I don't totally understand it, but I can see it matters to you. I get that you feel upset, and I'm here for you." Do you feel the difference? One shuts you down, and the other opens you up. And I have to name this as well as we continue on. The word should is one of the most dangerous words in relationships. It sounds like you should be grateful. You shouldn't feel this way. You should just move on. Every should carries judgment, and judgment blocks connection. So if your intention is to connect with your partner, try to edit should to something that builds connection and understanding. What creates that connection is curiosity, compassion, and presence. This is where mindfulness comes in. By slowing down and practicing compassionate awareness, we learn to regulate our own nervous system and hold space for another person's. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes just taking a deep breath, noticing what arises in you, and choosing to respond instead of react can shift the whole moment. Because when we practice mindful awareness, we notice, I'm having this emotion, I'm having this thought, I'm having this reaction. Maybe you notice that your belief systems rub up against your partner's. And before you start that debate, build the bridge of connection with validation first. We don't have to judge emotions, we don't have to resist it. We just notice, allow, and offer compassion. And when we bring that same compassionate awareness to our relationships, we create an atmosphere where both people feel safe to be themselves without fear of being dismissed or invalidated. This is why I'm so passionate about mindfulness practices like sound healing, breath work, yoga, and meditation, because they help us create that pause, that grounding, and that inner safety. If you're interested, inside my membership, I guide you through these practices so you can build the resilience to show up for yourself and your relationship with more presence and compassion. And I'll link it down below, or you can visit scarlettchang.com to learn more. So, what do you do if you want more validation in your relationships? You begin by communicating without getting reactive or loud. Gently share what would feel good to you. You might say, when I share, it would mean a lot if you could just listen first instead of offering solutions. I appreciate that you want to help me, but I'm not feeling heard or understood. I want to be clear that this is not about making the other person wrong. It's about guiding them towards the kind of support that actually helps you feel loved and understood. And here are a few simple phrases you can practice if you're learning to validate your partner. I see you're upset. Of course, that makes sense. That sounds frustrating. I'm here with you. I hear you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Notice that none of these are complicated. They don't require you to agree with the details, figure anything out, or to jump in with solutions. They simply acknowledge the human experience of the person in front of you. Validation isn't just about communication, it's about healing. For so many of us, the need to be seen and heard traces back to our childhood, where we may not have been validated by our caregivers. Now, as adults, we have the power to break that cycle, not only by validating others, but by validating ourselves. Because often people aren't fighting to be right, they're fighting to be heard. So the next time your partner, friend, or colleague shares their feelings, pause, listen, offer a simple, that makes sense, and notice how the whole tone of the conversation changes. You can even write down the phrases that I provided today and use them as practice, knowing it doesn't have to be perfect. Your partner just wants to know that you're willing to try. Remember, you are worthy of being seen, heard, and understood. You are enough.